Hello, welcome to my first video of my first mini tournament. I took part in both days of the King of the Colosseum tournament by Playon Tabletop. That was at the West Coast GT, which is up in Vancouver, Canada, and it was the end of January. The reason why I wanted to do this tournament is because it's significantly smaller than doing three 2,000 point games in a day, and then a second day of it potentially as well. King of the Colosseum is only 500 points. It was 4 games throughout the day, and we got out of there way before the other players playing in the GT. So it was a really good experience. I don't think a GT is definitely something I want to do quite yet, but I think I'll eventually work myself up there. Once the time started, Michael from Playon was running it. He kind of gave us a rundown on how it would go. This was the first tournament that he ran himself. I know Nick's run some other ones out of town. So we got started, and luckily my first game was against someone who I already knew from my local game store. My list on the first day was my Ultramarines, running Blades of Ultramar. I had Incursors and an Invictor Tactical Warsuit, and I had 2 sets of Blade Guard, and then Intercessors to Sticky with the Lieutenant. I scouted ahead with my list, and it I knew within about 10 seconds of round one that it was over. He got up there real fast. I mean, speed freaks, right? It's a small board. You don't realize how small of a board is. It's only 36 inches across. So you can move, especially with vehicles, you can move real quick. Lost a lot of my stuff right off the rip. And at that point, it was just like, okay, here we go. I had no expectations going into it. If I lost all my games, I didn't really care. I was there for more to the experience. As a newbie, yeah, my Blade Guard definitely got in some trouble at the end, and I ended up losing this one 24-91. But I was totally fine with that. Went into my second game. My second game was against Orcs as well, but a different lineup, more walkie mechs. In this one, again, put my scouts further up ahead. Just tried to punch through, lost my warsuit pretty quick, and just tried to put the pressure. Basically, what my opponent did in my last game. Just tried to keep him in his zone, and it didn't really work. But we got down to the end of it, and I was able to span over two different objective markers, and I lost this one 55-56. So this one was nice and close. This was a good kind of back and forth game, which I liked. Third game after lunch was against Thousand Suns. Played a little bit of Thousand Suns before. I'm familiar with some of their rituals. The AP4 total, the extra 2 AP, that hurts, and that cooked me pretty good. Kind of went through. I also didn't realize really that the Sekitar robots had big flamers and little flamers. So whenever I twitched, I got fried. This one I did okay. We had RuneScape for this one, so I was able to go through the walls. So moving through the walls was definitely quite helpful. But in the end, we came down pretty close, and then I ended up losing this one 47-55. Last game, so 0-3, and I went against the other 0-3 individual. This was actually one of the editors from Playon, and it was their first time playing. This event was their first time playing without having somebody coaching them. So they jumped in with 2 feet. They borrowed an army. They got kind of used to it. So, but I mean, everyone just took them under the wing, and we pushed through, and they're a newer player, so it was slow, but it was fine. They did well. They double checked the rules. I was trying to remember the rules for their WA, and stuff like that, even though it was new to me. And this one they ended up calling time, and we were part way through turn 2. Like, we hadn't even gotten to, I don't think we just started turn 3, and I had a lot of momentum. They were up on by like 2 or 3 points, but I had a ton of momentum. I had 2 objectives stickied, moving on to another, and we're just like, hey, let's just call it a draw, and then neither of us go 0-4. So we agreed to that, and it was great. The warsuit can shoot back out a turn if the incursors are shot near it. But I mean, since the game's so small, I mentioned that to everybody and no one did it. So it never popped off. I think the other downfall of my army is that a lot of my stuff was T4, and whereas the orc stuff, a lot of it was T6, T7, and then the Invictor Tactical Warsuit was only T8, not T9. So things that are anti-tank being Strength 9, you're wounding on a 3 rather than a 4, and if they do a +1 to wound, then they're wounding on 2s. So I don't think it was the best option for a list. I would have probably done something more Salamander related. Overwatches are pretty big, considering how small the board is. Michael talking at the end, kind of wrapping everything up, talking about the trophies, one for the actual winner, one for best in show, so best army basically, and the other for sportsmanship. And they had a bunch of ties. The winner ended up being my buddy who I fought in the first game with Speed Freaks. He went 4-0. I know he had some really good games. He was rather apologetic about how dominant his force was, but I'm like, no, that was he built his list well. Having never played Colosseum, just kind of understanding the rules and pushing through. And then we actually tied. There was a tie for sportsmanship, so they're gonna split the trophy, and that was the end of day one. On day two, I ran my Necrons. There were 2 separate tournaments, not one over 2 days, which was really nice. So I got to spice it up. I had 10 warriors, which pretty much just stuck around my home objective. I had 5 flayed ones for some infiltrate and to kind of pop off with some anti-infantry. I had 3 Ophidians for the uppy downy, and then I had my big murder ball of 6 Scorpex destroyers and a Scorpex Lord, running the new Cursed Legion, so the +2 strength really became quite ridiculous, which was awesome. The first game I had was against orcs again, and pretty much my goal was to just get my murder ball just charging into the biggest thing right away, just to smash it out. Kind of just ended up moving my murder ball up around the side and then across the center. The choppas did definitely a lot of damage. They worked my warriors for sure, but then my murder blob just came back and cleared them up. I ended up winning this game 81-58. So I was happy to get a win to start the day. Second game of the day was against Chaos. He had a Disco Lord, which is one of the first things that I saw, and I knew I wanted to slam my murder ball into it right away. He actually said after that was his plan, and I picked it up turn one with the Scorpex on the charge with the Lord. You're looking at 3 to 4 T9 hits each, re-rolling all hits. There's also a stratagem for sustained, and then you can pop devastating as well, which I didn't in this one, but they're tank crushers. This was a really good game. It went through, and I ended up winning this one 68-32. Game three was the same opponent I had last time for game three. He played Thousand Suns, and this time he was playing Dark Angels. He had his bikes, which I was trying to. I really wanted to get my murder ball into. I knew that was going to be the hardest thing, but he deployed them last, so I was a little bit reactive. Couldn't really do much to it. I ended up in the center with my murder ball and just got shot out. I missed a 5-inch charge on the reroll, so that hurt. The Scorpex just don't do well out in the open with literally everything shooting at them. It's still a very tactical game, but yeah, I got hit pretty hard in this one, and I lost 29-75. My last game was actually against Mubin, which was fun. He brought his Thousand Sons, so again, like yesterday, I was aware of the magic and some of the shenanigans that they had. I was also very concerned about his Demon Prince, and the way that I deployed my Murder Ball on the opposite side of his Demon Prince. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get into him, but I did, and I made a advanced in charge across and nailed an 11-inch charge. Naturally, I think it was, and I popped his Demon Prince. But then I just sat there and I just got worked by all the flamers. I got flamed and then overwatched, and that was just the end of it. I dropped my Ophidians in the back to try to get some points. And then this one ended up being a little bit of a slow game, but he ended up pulling out in the end, and I lost 44 to 82. I definitely thoroughly enjoyed my time. This is the first time I had played King of the Colosseum or anything like it. Obviously, I'd seen it on Playon's channel a bunch of times. It was a great kind of foyer dip into the tournament scene, kind of being next to it and seeing everybody. I would highly suggest if they have an event like this near you and a grand tournament's too much for you, to definitely check it out. At the end, Michael just basically just complained how bad it was because we kept tying. There's ties constantly. So best in show, like three people tied for third, and sportsmanship, like two or three people tied for second, and he's like, you know what, democracy isn't going to work, so he might redo it a little bit to give himself and whoever's running it a little more say, to make it a little easier in the end, because it truly is, everyone is actually so nice. It was something that I had always heard about tournaments, but never actually didn't really think it was that true. But literally everyone was super nice. They're if you fail a charge and then they make it, they're apologetic. Everyone's just super chill. Everyone really is just looking for a great time. I think Michael did a great job of running it. It was a little crowded on the tables on the first day, but then there were some no shows, and he instantly just moved us out to the space that he had and gave us more time. Good communication. It was great chatting with everybody. Definitely met some new people that I hope to catch some games with and thoroughly enjoy it. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully, this wasn't too terrible.